Ben calling in from Virginia. We're just talking about some stories today, I guess. Ben says he has a story about a friend who had contact with an angel. Ben, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, Dan. Hey, John. How you guys doing?
Hey, doing good.
Good. What's the story you got for us?
Okay. Here's a story. Now, I was at a social event, like a party with a lot of people, and there's a guy who is very stable as far as I know. He's a sensible person. Said to me that he had contact with an angel, and I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, my daughter was really sick in the hospital, and I was upset. I pulled up into a small variety store, like a 7-Eleven or Store 24, one of those convenience stores. And he said, I pulled up and somebody knocked on my window, and I rolled the window down, and he was like a vagabond, like a wino, like a guy who was and he was all sort of, he wasn't dressed very well. He looked shabby clothing and whatnot. And he said, do you have any change? And the guy had some change in his dashboard. And he reached over and he said, yeah, here. And the guy said to him, your daughter's going to be okay. And then he walked away.
Oh, no.
And the guy said, he thought to himself, he went, what? And so he watched the man go into the store. So he immediately went in after him to find out what the comment was about. And he couldn't find him. And he said he looked everywhere. He says, this guy couldn't have disappeared. I went outside and looked in the parking lot because he was nowhere to be found. So he said sometimes, angels will disguise themselves like in different identities, whatever. And
oh, man.
He's convinced of it. Like these people, and he always tells them that story. So I thought it was rather interesting that an angel would disguise themselves like a bum or a person of all shabby clothing and whatnot. So, have you ever heard anything like that? Like angels, like taking on different identities?
Well, in the Bible, in the gospel accounts, according to, gosh, I can't remember which one. I think Matthew specifically says that one of the angels is like dressed up as a gardener. But no, wait, it's Jesus. I'm sorry. It's Jesus that's dressed up as a gardener. But then there's angels that are just kind of dressed up like people, but they didn't realize that they're angels at first. There's different conflicting narratives of the gospel, but that's not, I think the basis for that kind of myth about angels does come from the Gospels, which is interesting, specifically from the resurrection accounts where angels were supposedly like wearing plain clothes and in disguise. Also happened in the story of Lot, where, the angels kind of come into Sodom and were also supposed to be like regular people, but the people didn't know they were angels. But also maybe they did. That story is also very confusing. Angels in general are just very confusing, John. I don't really get it.
No,
I'm not an expert on angelology, but it seems pretty too advanced.
Is that the study of angels? Angelology?
It is.
I like it. It should be.
It should be.
Yeah, I like it.
I don't know.
And so, what was the sentence that the man said? Because I missed that bit.
He said, "Your daughter's going to be okay," is what I heard.
Yeah, he was in the hospital. He was like very concerned. He was, he had just gotten off the phone and he was sitting there. He said, "I was really, at my wit's end. I was really sad." And then the man tapped on the window. I roll it down. He goes, "Yeah, what?" He goes, "Do you have any change?" He goes, he said, "Just hand him the change to sort of get rid of him." And then he turned and said to me, "Your daughter's going to be okay." And he went, that's the story.
Wow.
The funny thing about it, I was listening to George Carlin one time, and he had some sort of statistic like, I want to say like 80% of the people in America believe in angels. And in his response, I don't know if you ever saw the show, his response was, "What are you, fucking stupid?"
Well, that's one way of responding to that, I guess.
I just want to, when people call through a car phone, right, and it connects to the audio in a car, right? My wife is always on the phone and she comes back and parks in the garage, but she's still on the phone and the phone's connected to the car. I don't think people realize when you're in the car that everybody outside the car, especially when it's stationary, can hear the person on the phone.
Yeah.
You can hear that side of the conversation. So, perhaps this man, before he heard asked for some money, heard the conversation or heard that side of the conversation about the person, the daughter in the hospital. And so maybe could be where that information came from and why it was so specific. Because I've said to people, don't say anything you don't want to be heard because I'm on the car phone and I'm parked up right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's where my brain went to too. If they were just on the like you can definitely hear conversations through
the other person
outside of the car.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's what I would say. But also a little bit of cold reading could be done there too, right? I mean,
the story kind of grows.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if it, John knows this better than anybody, but if you can type somebody of being a certain age, maybe probably has some kids, right? You just saying, hey, your daughter's going to be okay. I mean, parents are always worried about their kids, right? That's an easy thing you could say to somebody on the street. And
it could even have been not even your daughter. You could have just said, your family's going to be okay. Yeah. And because you're going through something that specifically involves your daughter, you're automatically.
You're at a hospital setting as well.
Yeah.
And if it's somebody who happens to be transient, right, and is around the area, they probably talk to a lot of people who are going through some stuff because they're at a hospital, right? So nobody's having a good time at a hospital usually.
No, he wasn't in the hospital. He was in a parking lot.
The parking lot outside the hospital, though?
No. He was in a convenience store.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, maybe didn't catch that part, but I think all of our other theories are still pretty good.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Maybe he wasn't on the phone in his car and he could have heard him. That makes sense. There seems to be an explanation for these things.
Yeah.
I think
like we keep saying, just take a step back and just think about it. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. Ben, I'm assuming you don't believe this story to be true, considering your George Carlin quote. There.
No, I don't. But he's convinced of it. And something, in a sense, I wouldn't even want to tell him I didn't believe it because he's so into the story.
Right.
Yeah.
So into it. So,
yeah.
Anyway, no, I don't believe it. I'm a skeptic by nature, And
there is a concern there because, that's a story that probably, if he's telling it to you the way that you're describing it, probably gives him hope in some way, right? That's something to be, I don't know, concerned about, I think. Some people in our community are like, no, just fuck it, tear it all down. George Carlin is one of those people, right? Who is just like, screw it, this is all dumb. And there is something to that, but at the same time, nobody loses all of their beliefs in a day. And it's one thing if you've never believed. It's another thing if you did believe and you've lost that belief. For most people, your perspective, I think, is going to be very different, right? Because it's not, again, just as it's usually not something that happens in a day. It's something that happens over a course of a life. And that can change you in very significant ways. So I think sometimes there's a reverence to be had there, but not because I think the belief is worth respecting, but because the person there is worth respecting, right? So I don't know, Ben. There's something to say about that, but that's all I got. What do you think, John?
I feel like your friends should call in and tell the story from their perspective, because it's always different when it's the actual person telling the story. Because, I mean, you did a great job, Ben, but you may have missed some details which might sway it one way or the other. So it'd be a good idea for your friend to call in. True.
Well, the only thing about that is he's a Christian, and I think he's not a big fan of atheists. As a matter of fact,
even better.
Well, he's never met us, has he?
Yeah,
Come on, huh?
That's the best reason to call in.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Boston, but I live down here in Virginia, and I live close to the West Virginia border. And and everybody believes in. They're all like 99% people are Christian.
Here's what I want you to do, Ben.
Low profile.
I totally get that. So here's how you get around this. You tell your friend, you say, hey, I just talked to this guy, John, and he just insulted, he just called you stupid. He was so belittling to you, you should call him up and tell him what's good. And then the number would be the number to the show. And then he can call in and then he can fight John live on the air. And I'd love to see that.
Oh, man. Thanks for throwing me in the deep end.
Yeah. Well, it would be you, I think. I think you would be
that's
the one to take that. But anyway, I don't know. Ben, thanks so much for calling though and telling us about that. But no, seriously, if you feel like you got to keep a low profile about this stuff, hey, let us do the dirty work. Tell people to call into our show. We'll definitely talk to them. I won't hold back. At least maybe John will.
But I'm British. That's just my way.
It's true. It's true. He'll start walking away on those stilts, and then we'll never be able to catch him.
I'll be in a forest scaring my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Ben, thanks so much for the call.